Are we living in a police state right now? You know, the same governors that people held up as icons of American freedom during the lockdowns, the governors of Texas, Governor Abbott, and Florida, Governor DeSantis, I looked up to them too as yes, they stand for freedom. Well, not anymore. They have brought out the police with guns and face shields to arrest these students who are peacefully just sitting on the lawns on these campuses all over the country, um, as a sit in against what the Israelis are doing in Palestine and the U.S. The U.S. has been sending bombs, rockets, artillery, all kinds of weapons to kill. So far, the U.S. has helped to kill 40,000 Palestinian women and children. These are violations of the UN Convention, of human rights, of war. It's a war crime. And the UN Security Council has held hearings about this, but the U.S. has a veto power and won't let it go through. The U.S. and Israel are complicit. Why? Because all these politicians are bought and paid for by the Israeli lobby. See, we are actually an extension of the Israeli war crime state. I didn't even know this. I didn't know that our politicians are bought and paid for by AIPAC. There are a lot of, if you Google student protests, you will see what's going on. It is just absolutely shocking to me what is going on. Now, this is nothing new in human history. There were police arresting students in 1968, so it's not like this is worse than any time before. But we're seeing it again now, and these students, unlike in 1968, they protested because they didn't want to be drafted for the war in Vietnam. There's no draft now. It's just human decency and conscience. So we have these Jewish students protesting against Israeli genocide. And it's a police state. It's exposed. And these same governors that were like freedom of speech, freedom of rights, they don't care, because they're all bought and paid for by the lobbyists, the Israeli lobby. I did not know they were so powerful. The Israeli lobby is so powerful. They're called AIPAC, American Israeli Political Action Committee. I had a relative years ago who kept telling me that the politicians and the media are owned by the Jews, and I didn't believe him. I argued with him. I never wanted to believe him, but now I do believe him. I see it. It's exposed for all of us to see. These universities, they're supposed to be champions of free speech. I'm sure there will be lawsuits at the Supreme Court over this. They're arresting teachers, students, they're not even doing anything. They're just sitting in with these signs. And many of them are Jewish, actually. And then, they're gaslighting them, calling them anti-American or anti-Jewish or something. The only difference between Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and Hitler is that Hitler killed more people, but it's the same crime. There are some very evil people in the world, in all countries. And yeah, I did not understand the amount of evil and hatred that exists in this world. And the amount of people selling their souls to the devil. You know, it's it makes a serial killer seem tame by comparison. Very shocking. But I'm glad these structures are crumbling, as Eckhart Tolle often talks about structures crumbling. The US dollar is crumbling. China and Russia signed a almost $300 billion deal to do trade. They're not going to use the US dollar. China has been divesting itself of treasuries and buying gold. And why? Because the US is freezing Russian assets. Like, we're just saying our financial system is crap. We're going to freeze your assets if we don't like you. Just going to steal your money. And we're going to invade your countries because we want your resources. And we're going to sanction you. And we're going to borrow money just to pay the interest on our debt because we don't care if we're credit worthy. So we're destroying, we're destroying the dollar. Um, I'm glad that this is all coming to light. I think all this evil needs to stop, and we need to, you know, then they tell us that China and Russia are so bad. Well, China and Russia are not interested in empire building. Not all countries are interested in empire building. Maybe one day in the future they will be. Maybe one day in the future they will also want to build an empire like the British did and the French did and the Americans are still trying to do. But right now they're interested in building trade, in building their economies, in building their infrastructure, in building alliances with other countries. The BRICS countries, they have the I think it's called the Steel and Belt Alliance. They're building ports and railroads all over. Iran has just recently joined it. Africa is in on it. They don't want to plunder Africa. They want to do trade with it and have alliances. That's where their focus is. But our politicians are gaslighting us, telling us that they're evil. They want to take over the world. The only evil people right now that I can see are the Israelis, the Germans, and I'm German, the Americans, the French, and the British. They're the biggest evil warmongers out there, and they're all being exposed. By the way, who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? The Americans blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. They're doing a lot of evil stuff. One more thing. World Trade Center 7 imploded in a free fall many, many hours after the crash, many blocks away. They never did a proper investigation. They never investigate anything. That's why people don't trust them. But I still thought deep down in some way there was some goodness there. There's no goodness. There's no goodness at all. They'll sell out their kids for $1. These politicians, maybe not their kids, but all of us. They'll sell out all of us for $1. They're exposed. Just Google student protests and you will see. It's all over the media, it's all over YouTube. A lot of people don't watch the news, they don't know what's going on. Just look up student protests. In fact, I just bought a globe today. I'm like, I'm one of those typical Americans that don't know where all the countries are. Because I moved from Germany right at that time when, I studied the Roman Empire a lot in Germany in 7th grade. But I moved like before, in between, and I don't know where all the countries are. I'm the typical American. And when I listen to, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the Red Sea, Yemen, I'm like, I need to know where these places are so I can kind of keep up with the news because I'm getting really interested in the news now. So I just bought a globe. It just came, so I'm going to put it together so I can be a little bit more informed. Thanks for watching my video. The police state, that's what they're doing.